Hello, brothers and sisters. This is Lisa, and I'm here to share some devotionals with all of you. The first one is titled A Better Promise. An amazing fact. Each year, 171,000 Christians are martyred for their faith, and 100 million Christians endure arrest and interrogation. Persecution is especially severe in North Korea. Worship of anyone other than the dear leader is illegal. Parents are unable to share their faith at home until their children are old enough to understand the risks. There are an estimated 50,000 to 70,000 Christians in labor camps. Yet Christianity is growing there, with an estimated 400,000 believers. Hebrews 11, commonly called the faith chapter, ends its chronicle of Bible heroes with this statement, "And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and Barak, and Samson, and..." Hebrews 11, verse 32. The author goes on to catalog the things that have been done to people of faith, including persecution and death. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. They were stoned, sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with the sword. And that's in verses 35 and 37. Yet in spite of the things these faith heroes suffered, Hebrews makes it clear that they haven't received their reward quite yet. And all these, having obtained a good testimony through faith, did not receive the promise. The promise referred to is what God promised Abraham, the land of Canaan. The land of Canaan never became the paradise for the Jews that God intended. Why would God make these faithful wait? The answer becomes clear when we consider how the persecution of God's people continues today. God chose not to reward some of the faithful until all of the faithful could enjoy the promise together, and thus decided on an even better promise than the earthly land of Canaan. God having provided something better for us, that they should not be made perfect apart from us. Instead of the earthly Canaan, God has prepared the heavenly New Jerusalem. But now they desire a better country, that is, an heavenly. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. Hebrews 11, verse 16. And that's the end of the first devotional. And the next one is titled Destruction by Fire. An amazing fact. On April 18, 1906, a powerful earthquake struck off the coast of San Francisco. While the quake was felt from Oregon to Los Angeles and as far inland as Nevada, it was the resulting fires that did most of the damage. The fires raged for 4 days and nights and left 490 city blocks charred, a total area of about 4.5 square miles. According to the San Francisco Museum, the fires initially started because of ruptured gas lines and toppled stoves resulting from the earthquake. However, subsequent fires were started by firefighters improperly demolishing buildings to create fire breaks, and by property owners burning their own buildings in an attempt to collect insurance money that would otherwise be denied if the damage had been caused only by the quake. Thus already horrifying destruction was exacerbated both by greed and by well-intentioned but poorly executed attempts to stop the fire's progression. The Bible tells us that scoffers set a city aflame, while wise men turn away wrath. Proverbs 29, verse 8. The San Francisco fires demonstrate mankind's natural tendency toward destruction, both by accident and on purpose. But this proverb warns us that scoffing can make that tendency worse and result in total destruction. Scoffing is a form of mocking or jeering. Such behavior often stirs up the wrath of the person being scoffed at, and the results can be violent. God calls us to behave wisely by turning away wrath whenever possible. This means avoiding mockery and scoffing in our own lives, but also speaking gently toward others to diffuse potentially disastrous situations. This kind of wisdom comes only through the process of sanctification. When we surrender our hearts to Jesus and allow Him to live through us, we must surrender anew each day. Have you surrendered to God today? I am crucified with Christ. Nevertheless I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. Galatians 2, verse 20. And that's the end of this second devotional, and the third one is titled The Bible. But the word of the Lord endureth forever, and this is the word which by the gospel is preached unto you. 1 Peter 1, verse 25. As an educating power, the Bible is without a rival. Nothing will so impart vigor to all the faculties as requiring students to grasp the stupendous truths of revelation. The mind gradually adapts itself to the subjects upon which it is allowed to dwell. If occupied with commonplace matters only, to the exclusion of grand and lofty themes, it will become dwarfed and enfeebled. If never required to grapple with difficult problems or put to the stretch to comprehend important truths, it will after a time almost lose the power of growth. I have more understanding than all my teachers, for thy testimonies are my meditation. Psalm 119, verse 99. If the Bible were studied as it should be, men would become strong in intellect. The subjects treated upon in the Word of God, the dignified simplicity of its utterance, the noble themes which it presents to the mind, develop faculties in man which cannot otherwise be developed. In the Bible, a boundless field is opened for the imagination. The student will come from a contemplation of its grand themes, from association with its lofty imagery, more pure and elevated in thought and feeling than if he had spent the time in reading any work of mere human origin, to say nothing of those of a trifling character. Youthful minds fail to reach their noblest development when they neglect the highest source of wisdom, the Word of God. The reason why we have so few men of good mind, of stability and solid worth, is that God is not feared. God is not loved. The principles of religion are not carried out in the life as they should be. And that is the end of these devotionals. I pray that this blesses all of you, And I pray that you all have a beautiful day in the Lord. And I will see you either next video or in the air. Bye-bye.